I've been a worship pastor for 25 years with a new pastor on staff, and he's looking for a new place to serve. Is there a way to rebrand myself so that I can be considered for other types of ministry positions like a missions pastor, small groups pastor, even an executive pastor? We get this question a lot, Matt, actually, from kind of use the term half-time pastors, pastors that get into their 40s and 50s, particularly in the areas of worship and youth and even lead pastors at times, where they say, my whole ministry career has been in this one area, but I feel like either it's time for a change for me personally from a challenge standpoint, or I don't see myself being a youth pastor forever, or I don't see myself being a worship pastor forever. How do I make a pivot in my career from one position to another position? And I would say we get this all the time, and we see that it happens all the time, particularly in worship and youth roles where maybe a pastor, when they graduate from seminary or graduate from college, will be a youth pastor for a period, and then they'll move on maybe to a campus pastor or senior pastor role. My advice would be, we do see this happen quite often, and it's not impossible at all. If anything, it might make your search a little bit more difficult. It might make your search last a little bit longer because of the circumstances there. But most churches and most search committees kind of get that. They kind of understand that. The biggest piece of advice I would give for, let's take, for example, a worship pastor that maybe wants to shift to be an executive pastor. If you want to make that shift, you need to change your resume to focus more on that executive pastor role than a worship role. So let's say you've got a choir of 50 people. If you're going for an executive pastor role, don't put on your executive pastor resume that you've led a choir of 50 people. It could be that instead that you've mobilized a group of 50 people to volunteer. Okay, so that you're taking your skill that you've honed in that worship area and you're transferring that over into that new area. So, and same with the youth pastor, rather than I spoke in front of a youth group for 50 out of 52 weeks last year, maybe it's that you've honed your communication skills or I'm just pulling things out of the air, but make it more geared toward the role that you're looking for rather than the role that you had. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of it is the story. I think a lot of it's the story that we tell. Is if we sense that we are starting to be led to a different position, a different type of role, it's all about, as we look back over the course of our ministry, what is it that where have I done this before? If I've gone from leading a worship position or a youth position where I've had essentially functioned by leading small groups. This is how I've developed small groups in the ministries that I've overseen. Tell that story. Tell how you develop small group leaders. Tell how you develop youth leaders to lead small groups. Same thing with executive pastor, with a missions pastor role. A lot of it is just repurposing the experience that you've done and language that you would have used in a worship context for whatever that role is, and develop a few different types of resumes. Just a little backstory on me. I've done an MBA and I have an MDiv, and so I spent time in seminary, spent time in business school. And the big difference that I noticed between the two schools is that the business school really did a good job of teaching us how to market ourselves for positions, whereas most seminaries, I don't think, do that. And one of the things that they really kind of hammered into us early on was you need to have several different types of resumes set up for each position that you're going to be looking at, whether it's you may feel like you want to be in a large church. You may feel like you want to be in a small church. You may feel like, I can go either way. Well, you want to have a resume for each of those. You may feel like, I could be a great youth pastor. I could be a great missions pastor. I think I've got the abilities to do either of these. Well, you want to have a resume that's ready for each of those roles that clearly communicates the story of how you fulfilled that role throughout the course of time. So that's the best I got, Todd.
Yeah, no, that's excellent advice, Matt. A lot of times the resumes that we see are so generic that they're no good.
Yeah.
And even when you're filling out your profile the first time at Chemistry Staffing, you'll notice that when it comes to what areas are you interested in working in, and we say pick only 3, a lot of people will pick 7 or 8. And if that's you, shame on you. No, just kidding. But no, seriously, you need to do a little bit of self-inspection and say, these are 2 or 3 areas that I'd really feel like God has called me to work in. And I would do a separate resume for each of those areas because each one of those areas is different. So one of the biggest problems you can have, first of all, as a job seeker is thinking in your head, I could either be an associate pastor or a lead pastor or a tech pastor, or I could be a children's pastor or a worship pastor. chances are God has not gifted you in each one of those areas. So first of all, hone down what you want to do and where you think God's calling you to do, and then customize those resumes. And I recommend that if you've got 2 or 3 areas tops, do 2 or 3 specific resumes for those areas. Hey, Todd Rhodes here from chemistrystaffing.com. Thanks so much for listening to this short Q&A with myself and Chemistry Staffing's Matt Steen. Hey, we want to help you however we can during your church job search. So a couple of different things that I wanted to offer you today. First of all, if you'd like to set up your free church staff profile, it's totally confidential. You can upload your resume and kind of put yourself on our radar for any new church jobs and churches that we're working with trying to fill, either currently or in the future. You can do that. It's really easy, totally free, and again, totally confidential. You can do that at chemistrystaffing.com/profile. And if you have any questions about your search, or you just want to contact Matt or myself, you can actually email me at todd.rhodes, that's RHOADES, todd.rhodes@chemistrystaffing.com. We'd be happy to help you during your search however we can, and look forward to serving you.